And thanks everybody for coming to check out this edition of the Hubs Creator Meetup, where we share knowledge around Hubs, Spoke, and Blender and help the community create better Hubs experiences. So we have Fabien and Brandon here today. Fabien's a WebXR consultant and advisor, and Brandon's an actor and designer of future stages, virtual performance space, which I think everybody's seen. But if you haven't, go check that out. And I'll let you guys take it away.
Super, thank you so much. I'll start. If Brendan, you want to come next to this wall?
Sure.
Super. Just to give a bit of space for our, you guys can. I put some couches around, so feel free to use those. The motivation for the event precisely for me came from watching Brendan's show. So indeed, you should definitely check it out from the Boston Museum of Science. What was it, like a month ago, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And I'm going to spoil it, but at the end, my favorite part of the show was when you dropped the curtain or the green screen and you revealed all the tricks basically. And I thought that was amazing, not just as a grand gesture, but really to show that all of us basically could, if we were to pay attention to your explanations, we could learn from what you've done and do some, maybe not something as good, but at least try. And I thought that was, I mean, in general, that's a good thing to do, but especially in those times where we're all stuck at home, but still we have those technologies and new technologies. I think that was something to reproduce and to try to emulate and do it more often, basically. So when I did some little nerdy things that I put there in the corner, I thought, well, I'm not a theater director, I'm not a playwriter, but maybe one day I will, or maybe at least someday I could help others that want to do this. So that was a little bit the spirit of this event, to see how beyond the nerdy things that I propose and beyond the cool demonstration you've done, yeah, we can jam around, think about what's been done, what's still missing, to tell a story, to work, to have fun, to basically present or say things in a different and new and hopefully better way.
Absolutely. I just wanted to do a mic check on my end real fast. Can everybody hear me? Hooray.
Yeah.
Yay! Huzzah. I'm just an actor. I'm the least technical guy in the room. I'm so honored to be here, and I've been honored to kind of poke back and forth with a lot of different community members in the Hubs community as kind of a stranger to this sandbox on the internet. I'm just an actor, and I worked a lot in digital content, especially 2D pancake experiences, really getting into kind of OBS as a mode for projections and lighting and scene design, but still really maintaining that kind of 2D experience. And I think the biggest thing that my community has been grappling with in this moment is I'm making some weird white noise. All right. Again, least technical guy in the room. I'll see if I can fix that as we go. Oh, no worries. But what's funny is basically every single time that I'm in a meeting or a talk or anything, I have to take everything apart and put it back together because I'm in a very small, cramped one bedroom, which means if I'm going to do a show, I've got to actually take over my kitchen and pull everything out of it and set up like a green screen and a mat. And so working with someone like Fabien and hearing his ideas about how to just literally turn the home into a stage, that's next level, I think. I think a lot of people have adopted platforms like Zoom, which I don't think is the best platform for theater, but with the theater community, we deal with kind of some core abilities. There's key acting ability or playwriting ability or directing ability, but then there's accessibility, and then there's marketability. And those two, I think, in some ways kind of define the creative culture of things like Broadway. Who can get access to funding? Who can get access to marketing? How you make an awareness campaign around a show or a performer or a new voice. And what we've seen is that when people break the mode and break the model, things like Hamilton, you can revolutionize the entire industry. But it's very rare that we can allow that kind of access to new voices and new performers. And that's where kind of the Internet of Things comes in, that it truly is a democratic platform for anybody to be able to put out their story and create. And I think the Zoom boxes are kind of a misnomer in that we've decided that that is just easier. But it's not easier. 6 months ago, people didn't know how to use Zoom. So what I'm really looking forward to in today's conversation and kind of my ongoing conversation with this community and other open source communities is really kind of inviting the conversation of, if all the tools are new, if everything is a little challenge or a new way of looking at things, what are the best ways to support story and the best ways to support art in this moment, particularly as audiences are looking for connection and experience. And that's where very early on, I created what I think is a very, very simple templated space of a theater, but merely as a stepping stone for people to begin thinking of 3D environment or social virtual reality as a place to perform and see performance and connect with the audience side of that. I think there's a lot of attention that gets put into the behind the scenes part of, like, how do we composite actors together? Or do we want to do holograms? Or do we want to do avatar performance? And we've explored all of that. But the real key question for me is, how do you support audience? How do we all in this room right now? It's so cool that we're all meeting up and gathering and sharing thoughts and ideas and ritual of how we all treat this space differently than we would treat a space that feels like a church, or a space that feels like a theater, or a space that feels like a kitchen. We all have rituals that we bring to those environments. So I'm excited to be here. That's my long-winded way of saying I'm an actor in the room who's very eager to continue learning from all of you.
So I'll steal the screen from you.
Please.
And I'm thinking about what's the best way to do this. So I will try to, so I'll share my screen instead, and I'll put it there. Voila. So it's not very interesting. We can see each other. I'll pin it too. Now, actually, I don't think I can. I've locked it with OBS because I'm not as fluent in OBS as you are. So I don't know how I'll do this with a webcam. Let's see if I can do the webcam instead. No.
You want to add your webcam to it?
Yeah, and I think I'm streaming it already with OBS somewhere.
So make your OBS virtual cam go active again. That was perfect.
No permission. That's okay. That's the joy of being live. So instead, that's okay. So that's my screen, and that's why I also have videos as backups. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
So a couple of days ago, I want to clarify a bit the IoT part, because not everybody is into this. And just for a little bit of context, I went to see my generalist a couple of days ago, I think not 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago. And I was a bit jealous, not even envious, but jealous, because he had an automated house, some home automation, some domotics. And I was like, wow, if my generalist has that, then I should, like, I'm supposed to be the technical guy there. And then he asked me questions about JSON and whatnot. So I basically started it up, and it actually worked. So I was surprised, like, right away. So if I do, for example, here on my home automation system, you can see there my interface. And I can start my Roomba, my little vacuum robot. I can turn on and off the lights in my office, next to the TV, etc., etc. And I thought that's nice. But then it reminded me of precisely so Brendan's performance. So I'll see if I have it also for context. on YouTube. So I'll search on your profile, Brandon.
I can just put it up as my webcam while you continue.
Yeah, cool. That would be best. And one of the things that you presented during the behind the curtain part was, for example, that if you have a green screen, you should have ideally some reddish lights on for your hair to help to do the distinction between the two. I'll kill OBS this way I can have my webcam. It's more important because then I'll be able to show you that it's real. So I'll stop the screen sharing and I'll share my face, which you'll honestly care for. Oh, hello. No, come back. Voila. Hey everyone. Yeah, then I can, for example, go back to the gateway I showed you before. So I'll split both. So I have, I can, maybe it's better, I can show you also with the phone, it's the same. If I go, oh, yeah, that's trickier. So you'll have to trust me, I guess. So I have my devices there. Yes, you can see them. And then I'll bring my finger there. Voila. You don't see me anymore. It's kind of creepy, but at least it works. So now I can basically control my light from my phone or from my desktop. And then the interesting part is instead of controlling it just for the fun of it, I can control it for a setup that Brandon mentioned in his video, which is you can activate the light for, let's say, a bit of red light when you have the green screen. But if you want to just show yourself, for example, you might want to go back to something whiter or let's say more normal. So I'll do it there just for the demo also. So I'll go to my website, the gateway, and I'll pick a color that should be full white, which is harsh on my eyes, but at least you see the difference between something that was a bit warmer, redder, to something white. So that's where the whole idea came from, basically, is that you have home automation, and usually the typical thing for this is those rules. So I'll stop sharing this, and I'll put a room that I put on the side. So that's the most typical home automation. Wow, does it blink for you too? No?
Yes.
Well, the home automation part is, if you see here, I have a condition, which is what time of the day it is. And then I can do something, like here, for example, which is turn on the light in the kitchen or in my office or in the living room. So the condition is, instead of it being, thank you, instead of it being for just the time of the day, you do smaller things. Let's say, like, is it the sunset? And then if it's the sunset or 1 hour before sunset, you turn it on. But this it's just practical, which of course is nice, but it's not as nice as something that is also creative. So that's the prompt, let's say, for idea or discussion or demonstration is, instead of just setting up the light for an event like this, can we set up the light to have a virtual stage at home? First of all, does it make any sense?
Yes, to me, barely. I think what I got into when we were doing the first play that we tried in the Hubs Theater, we kind of had to separate out what was happening from the technical end of the play versus what the audience was seeing and experiencing. So any light cues, any sound cues, we had to do inside of OBS and use as a web camera, or we had to inject JavaScript into our kind of stage manager's browser to be able to, bring in a lighting effect or bring in a curtain. And so the idea that you could connect the lights inside the actual environment to manipulate them, I think that bridges those two worlds in a really elegant way, that you could have somebody at a booth or a series of switches, actually changing lights or sounds or triggering different events inside the room. I think the application for that is endless, which is so cool.
And so what would endless, but let's start with the first or the most exciting or obvious one for you. Like which, how do you envision this beside, let's say, the green screen, red hair solution?
Well, just so simply out of the gate, the idea to be able to dim the lights in this room to then focus the audience's perspective. I think the reason 360 camera technology struggled to catch on, from my perspective, was we came at it from the lens of filmmaking and cinema, which really relies on the frame and the cut. But theater gives the audience freedom to look wherever they want, which means we use other tools like lighting or sound or stage picture or movement to tell the audience where to look and to guide them through the story. We don't think of storytelling on stage as an empty room. We think of it more as a tunnel, or a hallway that you're guiding them down. So they are freedom to walk down that hallway at their pace and look around as they go, but you're still taking them on a journey. And I think that the ability to focus, if right now, for example, we're all kind of in a semicircle talking, and Fabien asked me to come stand next to him to be able to present and talk. But if instead you could just throw out a spotlight, Fabien, on just where we're standing, that would then tell the whole audience where to look. And what you can do with that creatively and narratively is really exciting.
Out of curiosity, also in the audience, are some of you telling stories or setting up events where you have to bring people either down a tunnel or to bring them to a conclusion through bringing them through the space? You don't have to be shy.
No such events, but I basically wanted to ask about the reverse compatibility of like hubs and physical space. So while Fabien shown these examples of how he's controlling a virtual environment by a physical device, can we somehow imagine reverse connectivity? Because I mean, if you are using something like a WebSocket, so they are bidirectional. So can we somehow maybe think or discuss about some kind of a hubs extension, which will allow us to form a bidirectional connectivity with a physical space. And later, so I mean, as a standard or something like this.
Yeah. So well, I can try to show you, but I've done it also a couple of days ago. So you see the switch here. There is a switch in the space. And theoretically, I can try to set it up if you want now for a live demo. But theoretically, if I go close enough to it, it will flip the switch. In Hubs, it will bring the light on, so down here in front on top of us, and it will also light it up in my real space, in my physical room.
Yeah, I've seen something like this in your demos, and how it's done. I mean, how is the bidirection,
I don't need
control
this.
work?
Yeah, so I'll show you. I'll try to make the live demo. Let's see. And yeah, sorry, Matt, our organizer and cameraman, but it means we have to move to this space, and it makes it tricky in the small area for the camera.
Yeah.
So let me try. I'll go through the different steps, and then I can basically explain hopefully how it's done. So I'll share my screen. normally I'll
Mm-hmm.
put it there,
Mm-hmm.
scale it up.
Oh, wow, I'm under the screen. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Tack. That will do. And then I'll hide there, just so that I don't, I need to hide a bit more, otherwise I'll flip the switch automatically. Anyway, so you see my screen, right?
Yeah, I even go
I,
upwards to take more space.
yeah, perfect. Good habit. So I'm starting the console. I'll make it a little bit smaller, and also I'll put my camera so that you can also see that when I'll make it a bit smaller. But then if I turn it on enough in VR, it should hopefully um, make it work here. So I have the script that I shared before. It's a guest, it's online, you can access it. I don't use this one because specifically if there is a secret code basically, so that if I don't know you, I don't want you to turn off the light in my room.
Okay, so it's a public API with a token. Okay.
So there is what's called a token, a bearer token. So
Yeah,
that's why this one is
JWT
mentioned.
standard.
Yeah. So I'll just take everything I had, but I think I already defined some. So basically, what I do, I'll go through the code quickly, which is so that's the security token, so that nobody else can do it except me or people I share and trust. Then I load an asset from a URL, which will be, it's a little bit magic. It's, well, the last switch
Okay. So you are injecting, right? So you're injecting the
Yes.
models in the hub scene. So
Yes,
okay.
like this model. So I'll delete the switch, for example, and I'll take, I'll load it up and position it. So you see the switch is now there.
That's cool. I mean, that's the power of HTML DOM that
Yes.
A-Frame is using. Yeah, that's cool.
And then I'll do it the same
cool.
for light bulb. So the light bulb is a GLTF object with a light inside of it. That's also a little trick. It's not just like this, the 3D object. There is a source light in it. So if, for example, I take the light bulb and I'll do a position, different position. I think if we do, I think the center of the space is here. So if I do it here, yeah. Did you see the space light up? Yeah. So now I'll put it away again. Well, actually, I can keep it there because a bit higher or even a bit higher. So there is light in the space, but I already had the light here, so it's not very exciting. What I can do now, I can say that actually the switch was already on because the light is on. And then this I already defined it before, but that's okay. It's basically to toggle the position of the switch to do on and off, and it's to change the position of the light bulb. So that's the 3D object that we just moved in front of us. So for example, if I do new light status to true, the light is there, and if I make it to false, it's false. So here it's not connected yet to IoT, but you can see already the impact in the virtual scene, meaning the switch here.
That's cool.
On, off. Okay. Then what I can do, those are the functions to actually connect to the gateway.
But I think that the domain of the gateway is local, so you're
Yes.
using your local network. So and if so, why are you so concerned about the bearer token?
Well, just in case, because I think I don't. There is another. If there is also this way, you still have a non-local gateway. So that's exactly the same, but you see the URL is different. So you can try to connect to this one. I'm not sure that the tokens, by the way, you can generate them. So it's in, that's a bit fast. So that's the WebThings Gateway. That's the home automation setup. And you have the list of objects that are connected on and off. And then the developer settings allow you to do local authorization. And then I can create a token, let's say for everything, or just my office light. And I can decide if you can just read the value, or if you can read and set the value. So if I do, for example, allow, and if I use this token, then you should be able to have access to my light. And you see the URL is not local. So in theory, you can do it also from another space, not just from there. So that's set up. Now I have the function to toggle the light on and off. I made the function to do it through the gateway. And now I can set up a refresh. So that's just to pull data out of the gateway. So I turn it on, and now theoretically, you see it start to have some error because it's not the control, but that's okay. And now I'll put this on the sides. I put my gateway out. So normally now you see my face with the webcam. And if I turn it off, well, I'm in the dark, and you guys are in the dark also. Well, there's still a lot of room, a lot of light, but yeah. And if I turn it back on,
the effect is clear.
Yeah. I appreciate your enthusiasm. We're nearly at the end, meaning that's the second step. So like here I had a way to pull the light out, and that's the way to flip the switch from inside VR. So now if I theoretically go closer to the top, you see, it switch without me touching the gateway. So if you want, I'll close here, and I'll do it again. I step back, the switch is there in front of me. I'll put this also a bit bigger. And then if I get closer, it flips the switch in VR or in 3D and in real life. And if I stay, there is a, like, I think I put 5 seconds to toggle back and forth. But if I step away and if I get closer, so that's the bidirectionality.
Yeah, understood. And how do you do you have a script that tracking your in the script that you published? Is there a line that tracking your position? I mean, because
Yes,
it's there in that snippet, right? Ah, cool.
yes. So I'll show you a bit more in detail. So if we go back to the script itself, that's this line 74, where you see I take the position of the light switch. So I'll just put it also in the console so that you can see. Okay, I'll remove the warning because it's pointless.
Okay, yeah, and this Euclidean distance between you and it.
Take the light switch, I get the position, I take myself, because I don't want that it applies to other people in the rooms. So I don't want you guys, not that I don't trust you, but it's easier for the demo. Get attribute, position. So now I have the position of me and the switch, and I just take the distance between the two. And if it's below a certain threshold, let's say 1 meter, 2 meters, whatever. So here I said 2 meters. So if I didn't toggle the switch during the last 5 seconds, because otherwise it would be on and off non-stop. So I'll put some kind of minimum time. And if it's more than 5 seconds, in the last time I switched it on or off, and the distance between me and the light switch is less than 2 meters, then that's okay. I flip the switch, I change the status of the switch, and I change the physical thing. And I've made a version for someone else, let's say. If there is somebody else in the room, that would be in here with the number of people that won't work well. I mean, it will be one of us, but we're not going to know whom. I guess it will be the first person who entered the room, so I guess it would be Matt. We can give it a go, but I'm not very confident about it, to be honest. But otherwise, yes, you can basically also, instead of using those properties, you could use the nickname of someone, and that person would be allowed, quote unquote, to toggle on or off the switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, if we can move from this hack when we inject the JavaScript to do so into some kind of architecture that will allow us to design the interconnectivity between IoT spaces and virtual spaces. This definitely, I think, can be an interesting opportunity.
Just to clarify also, here I do a light switch, but I'll share my screen again. It doesn't have to be light switch only. So I'll put the screen here. Actually, let's go back to the other rooms if you don't mind, since we have space. Voila. So what happened is, and also just to give a practical, not advice, but in terms of price, so the light switch that I have up there, I'll put my webcam again. The light switch, the light bulb rather, the connected one cost 30 euros, I think, and the ZigBee, which is some kind of it's like Wi-Fi for IoT, kind of. The dongle cost 30 euros, I think. Yeah, that's it. The dongle here costs 30 euros. It's USB. You can plug in a Raspberry Pi. The light bulb with a color is 30 euro. The two light bulbs with no color, but some kind of old school style, which to be honest, I love because I don't want my house to look, I don't know, like some silly gadget place. I want it to still look cool in a kind of old-fashioned way, kind of. And you can still have something very modern that you control with your phone, your tablet, your VR setup, your AR glasses, whatever, but still with this kind of style. And but I say all this, my whole point, very convoluted, is you can control the smart plugs. So for example, here I mentioned the light bulb, but if you want to control another device, let's say a fan or whatever, you can toggle on and off with just the plug itself. You can also control that. It's not just about the light bulb, it's anything that is electrically connected. Plus those light bulb, I'll show you also on the gateway. You can control the intensity. So I can control what's the percentage of voltage that's going to go through. So yeah, that's also the kind of thing. And I must not forget that the most exciting part that's going to be trickier for me to show, but is this part, the red light node. So I'll turn the screen a bit. Opla, what did I break? So you see a bit of the mess that I have there. And if you look, so that's the Raspberry Pi. Oh, it's very small. Well, I'll imagine you have excellent eyes. So if I turn it, do not disturb, the red light there turns on. But the thing is, this ugly carton box, it's me who's done it. I'm very proud of it. It's just a Raspberry Pi carton box with some LEDs in it. But the point is, it's not necessarily about buying stuff. You don't have to buy things that is all done. Can be a switch for the light, can be a plug, but also the do-it-yourself version of it. So it's not, I just want to clarify that the light bulb visually is impressive. That's why I use this as an example, but that's just an example. There are like do-it-yourself, there are plugs, there are whatever you can have in mind. That's why I think I wanted to hammer a bit the creativity aspect and think about, let's say, how to use in your play or in theater or stories. It's not just the light bulb. The light bulb is like a metaphor for everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable. I think it can go even further if so. But basically, you selected a Raspberry Pi because it can run the JavaScript, right? Or because you're coding it, or why?
Oh, so why did I? I think it's because I had one in a box. Honestly, a
Okay.
lot of those explorations, and
Okay.
I have the other demo there. I'll then pin it, where I'm cycling and it cycles in VR,
Mm-hmm.
and that's using a Thingy 52, which is very cheap Bluetooth um, like controller basically. Um, and Yeah, I don't know why it blinked. I think somebody else had the same problem as I did. I think it was because it's aligned with the wall. Sorry about that. So yeah, the Thingy 52, I use this because I have it there in my bunch. You see the box on the bottom right under my desk. That's my box of stuff, and it was in there. So all those also explorations or things are very. I mean, I don't want to say it's relatively cheap. Like the Raspberry Pi is what now, 30 euros, 40 euros. The Thingy 52 is, I think, 30 euros also. So that's also the kind of thing that it doesn't have to be expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically can go further. I mean, in terms of cheapy controllers, if you look into ESP controllers like
Yes.
ESP 8266, I'm not
Yes.
sure that it can be like super cheap, like $3 per controller or something like this.
Yeah, yeah. So to be honest, also because you asked why Raspberry Pi, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's a bit more expensive, would consume a bit more electricity than others, it's also because it's completely generalist. Like you can't do everything, but basically it's a small computer. So that's the beauty of it. But of course, if you want to have dozens of them, maybe ESP or very dedicated hardware would be better. But in terms of prototyping, when you're not sure yet what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, I think the Raspberry Pi is a safe bet. Just
Yeah, I
sorry,
understand.
I I'm super glad that you asked all those questions, but I'm a little bit afraid that like there were 10 other people. I don't know if somebody either had ideas or had questions.
Yeah, actually, could you go into a little more how you update the avatar position using with the pedals?
Oh yeah, sure. So how do I do this? So I completely forgot. So I'll put this back there and I'll scale it. Or somebody could put, no, I'll share my screen. That's easier. Up, share the screen. Okay, this goes away. So I that's the beauty, or that's why I share my code also. It's not just an ethical thing. I think it's the right thing to do. It's because I might forget how I've done it. So now that I share the code when I did it, that's it. That's 10 lines or 15 lines of code for the for riding my bicycle in hubs. Um, so basically, there is this library called Bug.js that allows to connect to the Thingy 52 that is flashed with Esprino. And then I tell it to send the data on the gyroscope, the accelerometer, and I think also the magnetometer. So I have basically a generally accessible data. I set it to nothing interesting. And then if I see that the threshold is about the difference of angle, basically, for the gyroscope, if I see that the angle is more than the square of the angle is more than 25, then I know we moved the device a little bit, like enough to make sure it's not like a rounding error or something like this. I define the speed, I pick my avatar. So for example, I'll reuse it there. I'll share it there. So again, that's my avatar, just like before. And then the little trick, let's say, so I can already move like this, by the way. If I take my avatar instead of the position, if I do this, just this actually, you see I just shift back. So that's how you move your avatar with code. The problem if you do this is that if I turn around and I do it again, you see that I stay along the axis, but it's not actually what I'm looking at. It's not very interesting. So what you want to do, basically, to move around is take your position. Yes, that's what you want to shift, but you also want to take the position of your head, and that's the position of the head, basically. The rotation of not the avatar rig, which is what you're sitting on and traveling a bit like a cart, but also yeah, the head of your avatar. Because if you look at my avatar now, not my avatar. If you look at the avatar that is well done, like of Michael there in yellow, sorry, Michael. If Michael moves his head up and down, his avatar, the body is going to stay vertical. So for those kind of avatars, then you need to make sure that you get the rotation from the head and the position from the body, kind of. And then basically you move with a certain speed, let's say 1 meter per action, let's say. And then you basically go straight in the direction you wanted, which is where your head is looking at. So the rotation of the camera, and you move just on the x-axis and the z-axis, y being vertical position. I decided not to move in that direction because I don't think that's, yeah, that didn't feel like something useful in that context. So then I took I pulled the data every 10 times a second. If I get data, and if yeah, I'm above a certain threshold, which was 25 degrees, the gyroscope for any of the axes, then I consider that I'm active, like something is happening with the pedals, basically. And if I'm active, then I move forward in the direction of where my head is looking of about, well, let's say 1 meter. Does it make sense?
Yes, that's great.
Are you able to use that to move somebody else?
So I lost you at the very beginning of the sentence. What can you?
Yeah, I was curious, are you able to move other people? Like, can you use that to move me?
No, because so what happens is you're the same way. I will add the light that was up there that I used to light up the room. It's owned by the last person who clicked on it, basically. Or if you pinned it, well, basically there is ways to know who owns an object, and you always owns your body. There is a sense of agency, but it's not philosophical. It's just right management. You own your own body, so I can move a light or I can move the couch, but not you, basically. So I don't know, did anybody has ideas on how to use those kind of tools or?
Yeah, actually a lot. This is why I'm so active, because I'm trying to start my PhD on a matter of how natural and physical and virtual spaces are intersecting. And I think that this linkage that you're showing, so while it's kind of prototypical, I can definitely start to use it with my students, for example, and explore how we can move further with it. So I think it's a kind of a really basic right now, but it opens a good opportunity for us to experiment on this interconnectivity of physical and virtual. So this is why I think this work is super important.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm looking at some work right now with combining or like improving social presence for work settings, and it seems like this could be an interesting opportunity to provide like a synchronized experience for remote workers who are collaborating with people that might be in the physical space. So being able to have synchronization between somebody is like in like spatial, for instance, where you have some people on like an AR headset and some people in VR, being able to like turn on the lights or open up the window blinds in the virtual version of spatial and then having it like reflected in the real world for the people on the AR headsets, that would be really interesting.
I was thinking it would be really powerful if there was some sort of a Zapier or if this then that's kind of integration then where you can actually maybe expose virtual items to sort of an API kind of thing then.
So let me clarify something on this specifically, actually, because the IoT panel that I'll show again, just for people who are not familiar with, which should be most, like I discovered it a couple of weeks ago. The funny part is those are called things, but that's specifically. So I have a Mozilla T-shirt on my chest. So I have a little bias, I admit. But why I find this specific project, which is not Mozilla anymore actually, but it was initially, is those objects there, or those items, if you will, they are called things, literally. So if you look at the things with the W3C, it's a specification. It's not like a random word used. There is a things description. So of course, if you want to go to bed early and you will need a bit of sleep, reading specification is always a magical thing. But jokes aside, it works in the sense that you have a thing with property. Let's say a light bulb or whatnot with an on and off status, a lamp here, an action to toggling or changing it on or off. You can set properties too. My point is those connected objects, like my light, my TV lamp, my Roomba, my Remarkable, whatever, some are defined by myself and some are defined by the manufacturer, like the lamp there that I bought. And so it means, thanks to the respect of the specification, if you implement a thing as an object, bridging the physical and the virtual or the augmented, that's what gets me excited, to be honest, is that the amount of things basically that can be there. And again, initially, my Roomba, this was not a thing. Like iRobot did not make it for the gateway. But then I noticed that there was an HTTP API, REST API rather, for Node.js. So I made a Node.js server for it, and then I did the description of it, and I have a thing now that others also could use for the Roomba or whatever. So transforming objects that are connected to thing according to specification makes it available through a gateway like this, which, as you saw, can be toggled with VR or not, or AR also. And also some rules can be done automatically. But the point is, if you do respect the specification, you make it available to VR and AR, to rules, to automation, to becoming part of an API basically, and become programmable. So that's the most, again, the light bulb I thought was visually exciting. But behind all this, I think the specification for the W3C on the thing and the architecture basically is what's most exciting, because again, in terms of creativity, you want the things to combine basically. I was thinking about a robotic arm to control a microphone when I give a presentation like this, or whatever, I don't know yet. The point is I can combine the different things thanks to specification. So I think that's something that is a little bit hidden under the hood, let's say, and that might sound a bit boring because it's specification, but I think it's very powerful. I think that's the trick, let's say, that could enable a lot of usage in terms of either digital twin, theater, creativity, XR, whatever. I think that's the part that is most unknown, that people are not really aware of. They just see a good-looking gateway or a cool looking tablet on a wall, but the truth is, or even on a video projector. But the boring part there, I think, is the one that gives the most opportunities, basically.
But is this specific? But is this specific? Oh, I'm hearing myself. Fuson. Is the specification a kind of standard already, or it's a draft? So
I'm not sure.
I'd be curious if different home networks could be standardized so that you could basically put people, something that happened in virtual space could affect multiple workstations. So the idea, again, the light bulb is a good simple example, but by creating an iterative change in the virtual space, could that change be reflected in everyone's physical space?
So I don't think it's been done before. I think, but yes, for sure. Because basically, if tomorrow you repeat the process and you give me your token, a bit like I was showing on how I enabled mine, and then I should be able to control your lamp. And basically, yeah, I don't remember, to be honest, the status. But it works today. So, and sorry, it was about the chat. Yes, if it should work, and I don't see any specific problem with this. If you would have basically to have another data set or file on top, which says the light bulb in my room is equivalent to the light bulb in your room. That's the one thing that would have to be added on top of. And I don't think I don't know the specifications enough to talk about this. I know it's feasible technically. We would have to agree basically on you sharing a token, or me also sharing a token with you. But we can federate it or reproduce a setup from one physical space to another. Yes.
That's very cool.
If anybody wants to try, if you have some a gateway and you want us to synchronize our lamps, I'm ready to try. Not tonight because it's late in Brussels, but yeah, another day. Very happy to give it a go.
Well, if I can just volunteer on that, I'm working with some students in Mississippi who have built 10 identical green pods so that the actors are in the same dimensions, with the same layout, with the same lighting grid, with the same camera angle. And then they're taking those actors in separate pods and layering them on top of each other for the presentation. So if you could control each of the pods independently or synchronously, you'd have the ability to simulate lighting changes, or, to your point, the mechanical arm of a camera or a microphone. And therefore you can have individual separate collaborators that share overall, things, and the interaction of those things, which is very cool.
So it would be interesting to see what the pods. So now the pods, they are one. They have the same setup. Let's say the green light, you say.
Correct.
And are they connected to something? They can be controlled remotely or not?
Yes, they're all connected through the currently using the internal network of the theater.
So I would suggest, yeah, I think the person basically who can control them remotely should have a look at setting it up with a gateway. Just to, it could be another implementation of the Web of Things, but yeah, that's the one I can recommend just because I know it best. And then yes, that makes it easier to implement with another setup that could be done elsewhere.
The gateway that you are using, that software, is that something that is a part of the like Zigbee USB thing that you bought, or is that something that you could do it yourself as well and just be like running on a Raspberry Pi?
Well, so I mentioned ZigBee because honestly I had the what the fuck moment because I thought home automation was like super closed or just, for example, one protocol. And actually, so for the context, ZigBee is just one protocol. It's like Wi-Fi, but for objects. But there are other ones like Z-Wave, for example, that compete, let's say. But on your Raspberry Pi or your computer, you don't even need to buy a Raspberry Pi. You can do all this also with your computer. I just use the Raspberry Pi because I leave it on 24/7. I don't want to have to turn on my computer to turn off my light. So that would be a bit silly. But to start, I recommend just using a computer. And then ZigBee, because it was recommended by someone who did quite a bit of home automation, and she said that was the most device on it. But that's the whole, again, exciting part for me, is the thing on my gateway where I turn on the LEDs. It's not ZigBee. It's just connected to the GPIO ports of the Raspberry Pi. But you can also have Bluetooth, you can have Wi-Fi, whatever in the end. It can be ZigBee, can be Z-Wave, can be 433 megahertz, can be even a protocol or infrared, but even a protocol you will invent yourself, whatever waves you want to use, basically, or radio frequencies, that would work as long as you can basically interpret the signal on the device, Raspberry Pi, for example. You bring it to the gateway. The gateway doesn't really care about this after. Does it make sense? So just to summarize, the Raspberry Pi can have ZigBee and Z-Wave and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and USB all at the same time.
Thank you so much, Fabien, for sharing all this.
Yeah.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you to you before for also sharing all this.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Super cool. Yeah, it's first time for myself at such meetup, and for myself it's super interesting. Yeah.
We usually don't discover bugs that kill everything every time, but yeah.
No, it's interesting bugs for me. I like such stuff.
But I already started to file it. But yeah, and just also a last word for anybody is, well, Brendan is on Twitter. The link to your Twitter is on the Meetup page, and same for me. So I'm pretty convinced that if you have any kind of question that pop up afters, or yeah, perfect, thank you, or ideas that you want to experiment, perfect. Just let us know. Let me know. There are no silly ideas or silly questions. So yeah, if you want to build stuff, if you want to try things, get in touch, please.
What do you think the next step with this is that you're going to take?
Okay. Well, that's the beauty of it. I have no idea. Because 2 weeks ago, I had zero thing for home automation. And now I start to have more and more stuff on my desk. I recently got some string to do electronics with strings, or also with tape. So I'll see if I can do something with this. To be honest, the most likely thing I'll do is not really related to IoT, but it's volumetric streaming. And something also actually I briefly discussed with Brendan is how to use, let's say, Microsoft Azure Kinect or Intel RealSense D435 or the depth sensor to do volumetric live streaming in hubs. That's something I'll have to focus on for a bit. In terms of IoT, yeah, whatever is on my desk that might make sense. I have a couple of sensors I still want to plug in and try, but yeah.
I'm also looking into volumetric streaming, so would be happy to see some of your further research. So yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah, with pleasure. Basically for now it's I installed the GStreamer and the GStreamer plugin to process the depth, the RGBD. The main problem I think I will have is in hubs. There is some matrix transformation to optimize for networking that is not standard to 3GS, and that's what I'm a little bit worried of. So maybe I'll try outside of. What?
Sorry, Fabian. No, I think it's already there because the Kinect standard is fairly common. But the question is, how do you transfer the picture? So are you transferring the frame by frame and then extracting the depth picture, or you are transferring the 3D model frame by frame? This is probably what
Yeah.
Kelly is doing. I think you are discussing it with him on Twitter as well. So
So I'll say there are a couple of ways. It also depends on how much processing power you have, because if you don't have like a monster machine, I think transferring anything but point cloud is going to be tricky. But yeah, I don't want to say too much just because I don't know enough about this yet. I'm still going to try. If because I hear some of you are interested, what I might do is I might live stream on Twitch my exploration about this, which usually, yeah, it's a little bit, because it's exploration, nothing might come out of it. But it means if you have questions or suggestions while I stream, or how you could help me also, that could be a way.